I'm reviewing the final cut by Pink Floyd. This is the album that almost tore the band apart, and yet it's one of their most politically charged and emotional works. Does it deserve a second listen? Or if not, is it truly the forgotten album of Pink Floyd's career? Let's discuss. So, it was 1983 and the band were reeling from some quite intense internal tensions. After the brilliant success of The Wall, Waters' dominance over the band had become even more pronounced. Richard Wright, a keyboardist, had already been fired during The Wall sessions. Waters was now essentially calling all the shots. Now, this just wasn't a Pink Floyd album. It was a deeply personal work by Waters, so much so that some fans argue it feels really more like a solo project. So the final cut was marketed as a requiem for the post-war dream. And it delves into Waters' anger, all sorts of things, including the Thatcher government, the Falklands War, and the lasting effects of World War II, particularly on his father's death. It's dark and brooding, and far more political than anything they'd done before. But that also makes it a very, very divisive record. Waters, Gilmour and Mason remained, but with Nick Kamen on piano and Andy Brown on organ added, along with the legendary Ray Cooper of Elton John fame adding his own brand of percussion. The album opens with the post-war dream, and this is a chilling introduction to the themes of loss and disillusionment that pervaded the entire record. And right from the start, Waters' emotionally charged voice is really questioning the aftermath of World War II, both on a personal level and also society level. The lyrics, "Tell me true, tell me why, was Jesus crucified?" suggest a deep frustration with the lack of meaningful progress in the post-war world, especially in the face of political betrayal. His anger towards the Thatcher government's involvement in the Falklands War is palpable here. The arrangement is minimal, allowing the rawness of Waters' voice and the weight of the lyrics really to take centre stage. There's a distinct lack of Gilmour's usual melodic input, making it feel more like an opening soliloquy than a typical Pink Floyd track. Musically, it's haunting, with orchestral swells that create a sense of foreboding. It's a perfect setup for really what's to come. Your Possible Pasts expands on the album's exploration of war and its aftermath. It speaks to the memories, really, that haunt soldiers and civilians alike, using the metaphor of past lives to suggest the paths that could have been taken. The line, "Do you remember me? How we used to be?" is a plaintive cry as Waters dives into personal and collective trauma. There's an undercurrent of regret in the music, with the acoustic guitar and orchestral backdrop creating a sense of melancholic reflection. The bitterness of Waters seeps through with lyrics like, "By the cold and religious, we were taken in hand," calling out societal structures that enforce repression and silence in the face of trauma. The song builds tension, but never quite reaches the explosive release that fans might have expected from a Pink Floyd track. Gilmour's contributions are subtle, almost absent, but there's a clear sense that really Roger is leading the narrative here. One of the few is a short track, and it's more of a brief monologue than a song. Waters shifts the focus to a school teacher who's returned from war disillusioned with his past and his present. The spoken word delivery, combined with the sparse instrumentation, it evokes really a sense of eerie detachment. Waters continues to explore the theme of disillusionment among war veterans, but this time with more urgency. The Hero's Return is a faster-paced track with sharp, biting lyrics that convey a sense of frustration. Waters narrates the experience of a veteran who is unable to find meaning in his post-war life. He's singing, "Jesus, Jesus, what's it all about?" trying to clout these little ingrates into shape. There's a palpable bitterness in the way Waters delivers these lines. This is probably reflecting the character's inner turmoil. Musically, the song features perhaps more dynamic shifts, with orchestral elements rising and falling alongside the tension in the lyrics. Gilmour's guitar, though not prominent, finally begins to cut through here a little bit, and this adds to the edge of the song's otherwise sombre tone. The track stands out for its narrative intensity, as Waters juxtaposes the glorified image of soldiers returning home with the harsh reality that they now face. The Gunner's Dream is one of the most emotionally intense tracks on the album, and arguably one of the most poignant in the Pink Floyd catalogue. Here, Waters imagines the final thoughts of a World War II airman as he falls to his death, painting a vivid picture of both fear and hope. The line he sings, "Floating down through the clouds, memories come rushing up to meet me now," is one of the most striking examples of Waters' lyrical brilliance on this album. The track is built around a mournful piano, giving it a ballad-like quality, with the saxophone adding a haunting layer that makes the song feel cinematic. Waters' voice is almost fragile here, making the emotional weight of the lyrics even more powerful. The idea of a dream is central as the airman's dying thoughts blend into a vision of peaceful future that he will never see. A future that, as Waters suggests, is still not realised at this point. Paranoid Eyes slows the album down once again, focusing on the internal struggles of a character who tries to hide his emotional pain behind a mask of normalcy. Waters sings, "Button your lip, don't let the shield slip." Now, this is a line that captures the essence of repression. The song feels quieter and more introspective than some of the others. It's driven by a soft piano melody, a sparse instrumentation that leave plenty of space for Waters' vocals to carry that emotional weight. The character portrayed in this song is clearly struggling with PTSD, and Waters' lyrics provide quite an intimate look into the kind of silent suffering many veterans have experienced after returning from war. The song's structure may be simple, but it serves as a powerful meditation on mental health, a subject that was not often openly discussed in the early 80s. "Get Your Filthy Hands Off My Desert" is a brief track that acts as a sharp political critique aimed squarely at world leaders and their role in the conflicts like the Falklands War. Waters doesn't hold back with lines like "Galtieri took the Union Jack," and he calls out here specific figures involved in the conflicts. The song's satirical tone is matched by its abrupt, almost whimsical musical arrangement, with brass instruments adding a sense of irony in many respects. It's another short track at just over a minute long, and it feels more like a political statement than a full-fledged song. But its placement within the album adds another dimension to the overarching theme of war, betrayal, and political irresponsibility. Though musically lighter than the rest of the album, the biting sarcasm makes this a memorable, if brief, detour. The Fletcher Memorial Home is one of the most politically charged tracks on the album, if you can believe it, and one where Waters' anger probably reaches its peak. What he does here is he imagines a retirement home for corrupt political leaders, including names like Reagan, Thatcher, and Brezhnev. The line, "Take all your overgrown infants away somewhere," is Waters' harsh judgment on those he believes are responsible for the world's ills. Now, that might be true, it might not. Musically, the song feels quite cinematic with sweeping orchestral elements, building up to one of Gilmour's standout guitar solos. Though brief, the solo is poignant, cutting through the heavy orchestration with a melodic sensitivity that contrasts with Waters' angry lyrics. The track serves as a centerpiece for the album's political message, and it made it clear that the final cut is as much about Waters' disillusionment with the current state of the world as it is about personal loss. Southampton Dock shifts the focus back to the personal cost of war, returning to a more sombre and reflective tone. The lyrics depict a scene from 1945, when soldiers returned home from World War II. But Waters juxtaposes this with the ongoing conflict of the present day. "They disembarked in 45 and no one spoke and no one smiled" is quite a quiet, haunting line that captures the emotional toll of war on both the soldiers and those left behind. The song's arrangement is minimal, with a gentle acoustic guitar and a soft orchestral backing. And this allows Waters' voice to take centre stage once more. This is a track that serves as a quiet moment of reflection in the album, underscoring the themes of loss and sacrifice that really run throughout it all. Its brevity and simplicity make it all the more poignant, in my opinion. The title track is one of the emotional high points on this album, both musically and lyrically. Now here, Waters fully immerses himself in the theme of personal and societal betrayal, singing about everything from economic decline to personal failure, and addresses the decline of British industry. But it's the deeply personal delivery of these lines that makes the song stand out so well. The orchestration swells and ebbs, creating an atmosphere that mirrors the emotional intensity of the lyrics. Waters' vocal performance is raw and vulnerable, almost as if he's laying bare his deepest fears and disappointments. The track feels like a cathartic release of all the anger and frustrations that has been building, and it makes it a fitting title song. My favourite track, Not Now John, is really the only track on the album that has a more traditional rock sound, and it provides a much-needed burst of energy. This time David Gilmour takes the lead vocals and giving the song a different dynamic than the rest of the album. The lyrics, "Hold on John, I think there's something good going on. I used to read books, but it could be the news." And this mocks society's apathy and distraction in the face of serious global issues. It's a scathing critique of modern media and the public's tendency to turn really quite a blind eye to important issues. Musically, the song is definitely more upbeat and features a driving rhythm, Gilmour's guitar work bringing a sense of urgency at last. It stands out as a moment of rebellion against the otherwise brooding on this album. The album closes with two suns and the sunset. Now this is a stark and apocalyptic vision of the world's end, as Waters imagines the devastating consequences of nuclear annihilation. The track is very sombre, yet it feels almost inevitable as it builds towards a bleak climax. The line, "The sun is in the east, even though the day is done," is particularly chilling, suggesting really that a second sun, representing a nuclear explosion, is going to be rising in the sky, signalling the end of life as we know it. This imagery is ever so powerful, evoking both the literal and metaphorical end of humanity, as the familiar cycle of day and night is shattered forever. Waters' vocal delivery is quiet, but emotionally loaded, as if he's, resigned to the fate he's describing. The song progresses with a sense of looming dread, carried by a slow and deliberate rhythm. The use of the acoustic guitar paired with that haunting saxophone creates a really unsettled atmosphere, capturing the tension and fear that defined the Cold War era. The saxophone was played by Ralph Ravenscroft from Baker Street fame. Now, lyrically, Waters touches on both the personal and global scale as he reflects on the everyday lives that would be wiped out in an instant. The imagery of the nuclear explosion isn't just about the destruction of the physical world, it's also about the collapse of hope and humanity's failure to avoid this final disaster. This song serves as a fitting conclusion to the final cut, wrapping up the album's themes of political betrayal, disillusionment, and the lasting trauma of war. It's not just a dark ending, it's the ultimate statement of finality. The haunting nature of Two Suns and the Sunset leaves listeners with a sense of unease, reinforcing Waters' message that the decisions of world leaders, if left unchecked, could bring about this catastrophic fate. This makes the track not just a commentary on the era, but a warning that still feels relevant today. It's a haunting, sobering conclusion, perfectly encapsulating the dark tone of this entire record. Now, when the final cut was released, it simply polarised critics. Some praised its raw emotion and political depth. For example, Rolling Stone called it a superlative achievement, noting that Waters' ability to tap into the anxiety of the Cold War era. Others, however, were less kind. The NME labelled it as self-indulgent, more of a Waters solo album than a true Pink Floyd record. Now, that might have been true. Many have criticised the lack of collaboration with Gilmour himself, admitting that he felt sidelined during its production. The final cut is without doubt one of the most personal albums in the Pink Floyd catalogue. Waters' lyrics are biting, political, and at times heartbreaking. However, it's also clear that the album suffers from a lack of creative balance. Gilmour's contributions are few and far between, and without the usual interplay between Waters and the rest of the band, the music can really feel one-dimensional. Now, if you're a fan of Waters' songwriting and enjoy lyrics that confront social and political issues, there's a lot to appreciate here. But if you're expecting the epic soundscapes of Dark Side of the Moon or the grand concepts of The Wall, you might find this album lacking for you. The final cut is an album that, in my opinion, is for a specific audience, but it's not the defining moment of Pink Floyd's career. More importantly, what do you think? Is the final cut an underrated gem or one of the weaker moments in Pink Floyd's discography? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section. And if you want more deep dives into the greatest and sometimes forgotten prog rock albums, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks ever so much for watching this one, and I'll see you all again next time.